but I saw my mom having a conversation with my coach and something seemed to be up. And she told me, she said, there is a man on their team. And I looked over and sure enough, there was. And so I made the decision to sit out, and I did not play 1 minute of that game because I have a right to for my safety, and I should be allowed to play against girls.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So Washington State is up to its old tricks. I guess I didn't get the memo about the executive order and the fact that Title IX has been restored to its original purpose. So we have a 15-year-old girl who plays basketball being investigated for harassment. What did she do? She simply refused to play. She didn't want to play against a team that has a male athlete. That's it. And apparently she may have said he, referred to the person as a he. So a 15-year-old girls basketball player is being investigated for harassment and bullying after allegedly misgendering a male player on an opposing girls team and refusing to play against a transgender athlete. This is somebody who doesn't really care for the idea of a male athlete being on the opposing team in a women's basketball competition. So she sat it out. Apparently you're not allowed to do that without getting investigated for harassment, without being accused of bullying. According to a complaint from the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism against the Turnwater School District, Frances Staunt of Turnover High School noticed during warm-ups ahead of her team's game against Shelton High School that the opposition had a biological male on its roster. Both the principal and athletic director of Turnover confirmed that Shelton had a biological male on the team, but with Washington Interscholastic Activities Association allowing students to play on the team that aligns with their gender identity, there was nothing they could do. So Washington State is going to lose its federal funding. That's going to be the next step. We've seen what's happening in Maine at the moment. But according to the family, Frances's family, they're saying that they're the ones who are receiving harassment. It's the female athlete that's being harassed. And unfortunately, the school that is being investigated doesn't seem to be standing up for the female athlete. Doesn't seem to be concerned about Frances as much as they're concerned about the male player. So the principal, Zach Suderman, essentially stood up for the opposing team's male player instead of the concerned female player on his own school's team. Always seems to be the way. The male athlete who wants to play in the wrong category, who wants to be on the wrong team, because a male player shouldn't be on the women's team, they seem to be the ones who get all the sympathy. And Frances, of course, was saying that this person should not be on a girls' team. This person should be removed from the team, and that she and all the other female athletes have the right and the expectation to play against other girls. That's a very reasonable request since we're talking about girls' basketball. But she was told that that would constitute discrimination against the male player because the male player is allowed to play based on gender identity. So Frances Staunt, she made a decision not to play in the game, and she was distraught by the threat she perceived to her teammates' safety, having to play against a male. Instead of taking the side of a concerned Staunt, a girl wanting to play girls' high school basketball against females, the Turnwater School District opened an investigation into her for harassing the biological male. According to the complaint, the Staunt family alleged the principal, Suderman, approached Frances's mother and asked, "Are you telling me that your daughter will never get knocked down or potentially injured by someone bigger, stronger, and faster than she is while playing sports?" Same old tactics. Where have we heard this before?
Perhaps you shouldn't play if you are that concerned about injury, because there is always going to be somebody stronger. There's always going to be somebody bigger, regardless of the gender of the athlete.
I don't think Frances is concerned about playing against other girls and the risks that come with that. Frances is concerned about the risks that come with playing against male athletes, because female bodies are different from male bodies. We know this. And to sit there and act as if playing against a male basketball player is the same as playing against a female basketball player, albeit one that's taller or bigger than Frances, is totally disingenuous. It's gaslighting, and it's very dismissive of the valid concerns that this young lady has. And the fact is, male players do not belong on women's basketball teams. We have an executive order that has been written by the President of the United States wanting to keep boys out of girls' sports, wanting to keep men out of women's sports. It's very simple. And these schools are insisting on continuing to subject women and girls to this injustice. They're insisting on continuing to put the safety of these girls at risk, all because of gender identity. And they're ignoring biological fact. They're ignoring the fact that girls are more likely to get injured when playing against boys. That's just fact. Because boys are bigger, boys are usually taller, and boys have higher muscle mass, bone density. So getting knocked down by a boy could result in more severity of injury than getting knocked down by another girl. And what's funny is the way sports is organised proves that those risks exist and are acknowledged. But all of a sudden, when it comes to gender identity, we want to forget that. So to say, what about people who are stronger and faster, is ignoring the fact that sports has categories for a reason. It's not just about strength and height, it's about whether one is male or female. We separate the sexes in sports for good reason. Big reason for that is safety. So Frances's concerns are not irrational. It's very condescending to speak to her mother that way. A principal should know better. The principal realised that the biological male on the other side was bigger, stronger and faster, and took no issue with that fact based on the allegation exactly. So it sounds like it's the family who are the ones receiving harassment. But there's no compassion for that, there's no empathy for that, there's no concern about that. The only one they seem to be concerned about is the male player. Frances's brother tried to film the game and was basically threatened, saying you better think twice before doing that. And Frances was recently on the podcast and shed some more light into what has been going on, simply because she refused to play against a team with a male player.
It was my last game. I was very excited. Beforehand, I was setting goals for myself with my mom and my dad. And I was using that warm-up time to really be focused and everything. But I saw my mom having a conversation with my coach and something seemed to be up. And she told me, she said, there is a man on their team. And I looked over and sure enough, there was. And so I made the decision to sit out and I did not play 1 minute of that game because I have a right to for my safety and I should be allowed to play against girls.
And so I walked down to the varsity coach and I said, is that a boy on their team? And he said, I cannot make a statement on this. However, I'm in agreement with you. And he said, you need to go talk to the athletic director. And so I went up to him and I said, can you tell me if that's a boy on the court down there? And he said, I am not going to say that. We do not discriminate. And I said, well, you're discriminating against my daughter by putting her out there potentially against a boy player. And he said, well, we follow WIAA and Washington state law. I said, President Trump yesterday signed an executive order that went into federal law yesterday. He said, we do not have to follow that. We follow Washington state.
Why, if they care so much about the men being able to play in female sports, do they not care about how the female feel about it, how the girls feel and how it affects us and everything we've worked for?
I'm so sick of seeing these remarkable girls who are perfectly polite, perfectly respectful. You just simply don't want to play against a male player. Being treated like they're the ones who are the bullies, they're the ones who are harassing, they're the unreasonable ones. This young lady should be commended for standing up for what she knows to be correct. I mean, the majority of people in the country agree that Frances and girls like her should not be subjected to this, should not be made to play against teams with male players. That schools should actually respect and protect categories. These schools don't even require these so-called trans athletes to undergo anything, to undergo any sort of hormones or any form of, suppressing their testosterone. That's not required. And quite frankly, I'm glad that we're not encouraging kids to undergo those treatments. But because this person declares to identify as a girl, doesn't take away the fact that this person is male and has a male body. So why on earth is gender identity a reason to break the categories in sports, to ignore the categories in sports, and allow that line to be crossed. The fact is, if we were to say that we'll get rid of girls basketball, get rid of boys basketball and just have them all play together, these very same people would say that that's absurd. Gender identity and their agendas aside, they would say that's absurd. Is that going to be safe for the girls? Are girls going to win anything if we say that they play against boys? Is that going to be fair? In any other reasonable circumstance, that would be the response. But they've thrown that all away, and they're talking about discrimination while discriminating against female athletes. It makes no sense whatsoever. The father of the male player also allegedly sent Francis's mother a number of text messages threatening to come to their home if she did not respond. On top of alleged threats from the male player's family and zero support from her school's principal, the local teachers' union and Turnwater Education Association reportedly reacted to the situation on Facebook by showing support for trans athletes in sports instead of showing any support for Staunt, the biological female in the situation. So one of the comments left by the teachers' union that has since been deleted has said, "Dear trans kids, the world is better with you in it, and you are worth fighting for. And we are recognizing our students as they already exist in the world." These are the sort of comments they were leaving in the midst of all of this going on. No compassion, no empathy for the female athlete, of course. So the father and the transgender teenager both appeared on the same podcast, which is, to be fair, commendable. At least they showed up and they wanted to give their side of the story. So the Shelton High School senior has been identified as Andy Rooks. So both Andy, alongside the father, appeared on the podcast. Rooks explained that the idea of transitioning came from his mother around second grade.
Mm-hmm. Have you had any medical or surgical interventions?
No, nothing. No hormones, nothing.
Nothing. It sounds like on his executive order to ban surgical interventions
for
minors, you're 100% in support of that.
This process didn't come without its hard red lines for me. Mm-hmm. And one of those is the transition or the transgender, the hormones, the surgeries, all that stuff. I wouldn't do it.
You would not ever consent to that?
No.
Did you want any of that?
It was something that another thing my mom had mentioned to us, and me and my dad did go to a doctor's office, and we did have a conversation with that, and my dad told me that he wasn't going to let me, which was fine. I really wasn't upset about it because I understood where he was coming from, because those surgeries and those hormones and stuff, they alter your life forever. Yeah. And even today, as I am an adult, is something that even I question if I'll ever do, because I don't feel the need for it. Does that make sense? It's an adult's decision. It's a very big and major decision.
So, I mean, this is a debate we're in right now in Washington State and at the national level. So you don't believe that someone 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 should be able to get gender hormone therapy without their parents saying, yes, go get it?
No, and I even think any form of medical consent at 13 is just so why are you getting anything? Whether just aside from anything gender changing, why are you doing anything behind your parents' back at 13? You shouldn't feel the need to, and it just doesn't feel right to me.
Did you hear that, Senator Jamie Peterson? I'm going to be sending this interview to your office.
One of the things that I always strive to have with Andy was a very open relationship on this stuff. It wasn't just a matter of, no, you're not getting in, that's it. It was an explanation of these are life-changing decisions that, these things can cause cancer, they can make you infertile. These are adult, lifelong decisions that I will not make for you.
So admittedly, that was not what I was expecting. We have a father who says that he's against kids having hormones and going through these procedures that will permanently alter their body. And Andy said the same thing. And this person confirmed to have not taken hormones or had any procedures, done anything to permanently alter the body. So this is a male athlete who has gone through male puberty, and obviously when this person plays basketball on a girls' team, this person is playing in a category that doesn't fall in line with biological reality, because we know that sports has categories, and what they're doing is allowing gender identity to supersede these categories, to affect the integrity of the women's category. And that's not right or fair for the female athletes. So it's great that Andy and the father are not encouraging procedures and hormones for children that will permanently alter their bodies, procedures that they can't consent to. But I would like to see them acknowledge the reality of a male athlete playing on the women's team, playing against women. That is a safety risk. If you can acknowledge the safety risks of hormones and puberty blockers and procedures for kids, they should also be able to acknowledge the safety risks that come with a male athlete playing on a women's team, as well as all the other factors such as fairness and the integrity of the girls category. So Frances deserves better, her family deserve better, and her teammates deserve better. Washington State needs to do better, or before you know it, they will lose their federal funding too. I think the president has made it very clear what happens to states that don't look out for the interests of all athletes. They don't look out for the safety of all athletes. Because that's what's going on at the moment. They're not looking out for the safety of female athletes, and they're dismissing their concerns, even though their concerns are valid and their concerns are based on facts and reality. Because if you look around, sports has categories and always will have categories if it's going to continue to be safe and fair. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.